How can female founders use their businesses, not just for income, but to build generational wealth so they can increase their impact on the world? Well, our guest helps female founders build wealth by identifying, protecting, and maximizing their intellectual assets. Oh boy, we're going to go deep into a delicious conversation. Stay tuned for the Startup Life live show. Let's glow. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I now share founder startup stories to help newly minted business owners find the solutions and inspiration they need to succeed. And thank you for carving out time to tune in and up your founder game while cheering on a fellow founder, because you never know, a new resource, a tool, a solution, or an aha moment may happen for you and your business while you're listening to another founder's startup stories. And whether you're joining us live or via replay, please say hello. Let us know where you're hailing from, and be sure to amplify your business as well. Let us know what you're working on. And thank you for sharing your love on this video wherever you're watching from. We're live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. I feel like there should be like a little tune for that. And so when you click that like button, it goes out to your feed, and you never know whom else you may be helping for them to hear this conversation today. And if you're tuning in from YouTube, please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell so you can receive an alert whenever I post a new show or whenever I go live. And again, this really helps first-time founders. It helps us reach more first-time founders and help them maximize the joy and minimize the heartache from these wonderful founder stories. And how do you receive an alert whenever I post a new show? Well, let me pull up this wonderful flyer so you can see the Startup Life Live Meetup group. You can just scan that QR code or go to bit.ly/Startup Life Live and hop on to the meetup group, join it, and you'll receive an alert whenever I post a new show. And you'll never know what kind of new story you're going to hear from a founder that will boost your business. And if you resonate with the show's mission of amplifying diverse founder voices while serving first-time founders around the world, please reach out to me to learn more about how you can make a greater impact on the startup ecosystem through sponsoring the Startup Life Live Show. So it's Ande at andelyons.com. All right, so I am so excited. I always get so excited, right? Interviewing our guests because they're so fascinating. And today's guest is Erin Austin. And let me just pull up a little something you can look at about her business while I read you her background very quickly. A graduate of Harvard Law School, Erin's 25 plus years in roles as general counsel, head of business affairs, and COO at large and small companies, including Warner Brothers, Lionsgate, MGM, Teaching Strategies, and M3 USA Corp, uniquely prepared her to educate service-based firms, especially women and POC-owned, to identify and protect the untapped value in their businesses. Oh boy, yep, we're going there. Let's get out the clappers and give a round of applause to Erin Austin. Erin.
Hello. Love
Yes.
it.
Sometimes I like to go overboard with the clappers, because we're not in an audience, so we can't all go, oh my gosh, that's great. But I want you to feel, wonderfully welcome. And folks, I have to read a disclaimer because, we have a fine attorney with us today. So it's very important that I read this disclaimer. And that is, this recorded conversation is informational purposes only and is not legal advice. Transmission of this conversation is not intended to create, and viewing and or listening does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. Viewers and listeners are advised to seek professional help if they are concerned about a specific legal issue. Okay, everyone got this? Yay! All right. Again, it's just so important that we, do that for our professionals who are out there, especially as live stream hosts, Erin, put it out there, make sure everybody understands there are legal ramifications. Also, I want to remind folks to amplify your brand, share your business name, one-liner, and website URL in the comments, and we will showcase and celebrate you and your wonderful work live during the show. And do not hesitate to pop in questions or insights into the comment threads during our conversation. We'll bring them up on the screen, and you never know, you could be adding so much value to our conversation today. A quick howdy do to some favorites. Mia Voss, make that money. That's right. Hashtag make that money and hashtag bring home the bag. Absolutely. Mia is the popular podcast host of Shit We Don't Talk About. And I got to tell you, hop onto Spotify and go there. You will love these conversations because they are like, what you need to know. And she does it in such a beautiful way. Thank you, Mia. And hey, Laura, how you doing? So happy to see you. Laura is the founder of Zaze. Now, this is like top premium, delicious, oh my gosh, amazing olive oil harvested by female and grown by female founders out of Turkey. So this is a woman who has a very huge social impact with hers. And Brent, sending love from Ottawa. So happy to see you. And happy birthday. Oh my gosh. So happy you are in our lives in this wonderful way. And I hope it was a delicious day filled with everything you love best. Yes. Okay. Oh, thank you, Mia. That's right. It's Shit We Don't Talk About podcast.com, everybody. So my listeners on the podcast, go there. You will be so happy because nobody brings it like Mia. All right. All right. Now that we've got that done, I have some statistics I want to read, Erin, before we jump into our conversation, because this is what we're talking about, folks. Okay. There was this great article in Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, and it said about 71% of women who start a business do it to make a difference. Only 63% of men start a business for the same reason. And 65% of women entrepreneurs choose this path to make a high income, as opposed to 73% of men. And then another statistic I thought was interesting. The third most popular reason why women become entrepreneurs is to earn a living because jobs are scarce. So there's a lot of reasons that bring us to our path today. But before, as we get going onto this journey with Erin, everybody, I want you to start thinking like an owner. Just really put on your owner tiara and hats and just start looking at your business through this different lens that Erin is going to be bringing, because there's so much value in your world. And hey, Ruby Sunshine Taylor, checking in from Baltimore, MD. Ruby's business, the Financial Joy School. I think I got that right. She was interviewed a few weeks ago. Loved having you on the show. And we learned a lot, again, about generational wealth from the ed tech angle. So back to my wonderful guest. Let me just bring her up into the big picture. There she is. Yay, Erin. Erin, I mean, this entrepreneur journey can be so challenging. Hashtag the struggle is real. So you had some pretty awesome roles that I am sure you worked really hard for in established companies. And yes, it helped that you had your Harvard Law degree, but you are a woman and a woman of color. Getting into these roles as general counsel and chief operating officer, et cetera, at large corporations as well as small, is not easy in that journey. What happened that you wanted to dive out after 25 plus years in this category and start a business, leave benefits and 401ks and payroll behind? What's the matter with you? Paychecks.
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I have been mostly self-employed for the last 15 years. So the first 15 years was law firms and in-house counsel. I have been in and out a little bit with some clients in the last 15 years, but for the most part, I have been self-employed. And you are correct that in many ways it's kind of a job without benefits, but you do get to pick the parts that you love and not do all the parts that you don't love. And of course, there's that flexibility. For me, I've worked from home for that entire time as well.
Nice.
Lucky enough, that when I decided to start my own business was the front end of people working remotely and working
Nice.
So yeah, I think technology has been my biggest struggle there.
But what happened? I mean, there had to have been a life event where you said, you know what, I want a little more flexibility in my life. I'm out of here in this role via this methodology for earning an income, and I'm going this way. What happened?
Well, I wish I could say it was all kind of just me being brave, but I was working at general counsel at a film company that was acquired by Lionsgate, and I had the option to stay or the option to be bought out of my contract, and I've been thinking about like kind of what next. So by then I was 15 years into my career. I still did not have children at the time, and so when I had the opportunity to be bought out of my contract, I just took it. And then decided to figure out what to do next after that. And so I was living in LA at the time, and I am from Northern Virginia. That's where I am now. And I was kind of traveling around, and my brother actually asked me to come back and kind of help with my aging parents. And so I did that. And once I was back here, well, I'm a film lawyer, which is what I was at the time. And so if I was going to continue to be a film lawyer, that meant working for myself from the East Coast remotely. And so that was basically how it started. I mean, I think that probably a lot of women who start their own businesses, especially if it's an expertise-based business, they use the skills that they learned in corporate, and their first clients are their old employers. And my story is very similar.
And we all, I love how you shifted, and life happens, right, folks? And I'd say 99% of the time it happens for us, right? And how we look at it in hindsight, sometimes it's the rear view mirror that we go, oh yeah, that worked out really well. And in the moment though, it's like, oh no. But I love that you got put, a little pushed, a little pulled to what you wanted to do next and have more meaning in your life through going into the entrepreneurship program. And, folks, another stat that's really big out there that I've read is there are so many more folks over the age of 50 launching businesses. And I bring that up because we tend to celebrate, and they're absolutely do that celebration, the kids, right? Those in their 20s who are doing remarkable things, or in their early 30s, raising all this money. But many of them don't have the responsibilities of children, right? They don't have the responsibility of a 401k that they've built up over the years to lose, not to mention a reputation. So in my opinion, anytime somebody leaves, the world of steady, what they think might be steady as she goes, and goes into this world of entrepreneurship, it takes a lot of guts. And I applaud anybody who's doing it when they have responsibilities. So you had to find your, first customer. Had you ever had to do this before? Had you had to go out and find clients when you were in the role of COO or general counsel?
No. I mean, I was in my client was the business, right? And so no, I never had to do business development before. I started my career at a law firm, but I was a junior associate. When I left after 3 years. So I was not in the business development part of the law firm life. And then as an employee, of big companies, that was my client. So that was, that's a big shift.
You're sitting down looking at all their contracts, protecting the company from inside and making sure everybody's compliant. I mean, folks, the film industry, come on. I don't even want to talk about how many lawsuits may have come across the table that were based on harassment, but we're not going to go there today.
Yeah. I miss the Me Too movement. So
So Erin, so now you had to go and do something many newly minted founders are so unsure about how to do, right? Which is to build that relationship, start feeding the funnel, the martini glass, right? And start bringing things up. folks, I'm just so sorry. I'm getting a little ping from LinkedIn saying that I'm not live on LinkedIn, but okay, great. Producing my own show. Yeah, you get little messages from the board there. Let's talk about this because, proving our value prop is something that we always like to talk about here at the Startup Life Live show. And I'll tell you why. This is where sort of the rubber meets the road, everybody. You have to prove that folks want what you're selling. And until that starts happening on a repeat basis, you really don't know if your hypothesis of what you're bringing to the world is something the world wants, the customer segment. So I know you had this one client, which is lovely. And, and perhaps it's enough to feed you and your family, right? For the month, the monthly nut that we like to talk about in entrepreneurship. What's the overhead? Oh my God. But still, how did you start having those conversations as an attorney?
Yeah, well, this is something that just happened without me kind of even knowing the value prop and having a niche and those things. I knew what I knew. And what I knew was doing intellectual property based transactions. I'm not a litigator. I don't do employment stuff. I don't do real estate. I know commercial transactions that involve intellectual property, licensing, rights acquisition, copyrights. And so for me, it just came naturally to go, this is my zone of genius. I don't want to learn the new stuff. So when I was, asking for referrals or people referring things to me, I would turn down the things that were, outside of what I knew and where my expertise lay. So I kind of stumbled on, to having a niche, and so
that's good.
yeah, it
that
was.
is good.
I got lucky in that way. Yeah, I do have, colleagues who are still to this day, kind of generalists, and we call them, I think they call them front door lawyers. There's a term for it. Like they'll take whatever walks through the door, and I was always very clear that was not who
Going
I
to be
was.
for you. And your background, your lived experience served this because you were always in what's called the IP driven, company. So
Right.
explain a little bit about what that means, intellectual property driven.
Pretty much every business these days is IP driven, but in particular for me, the asset is specifically an intangible, so for the film business, what the product is film. For a market research company, what the product is data. For a publishing company, books. And so, even a company like, let's say an airline, someone who makes airplanes, obviously there's a ton of intellectual property that goes into creating an airplane, but they also have these physical assets. So I don't deal with kind of physical asset type of businesses. I deal with businesses where their assets are intangible that you can't, kind of pick.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about that intangible asset because they tend to be invisible. So let's really articulate what that intangible asset is, because yes, you can have a great bottle of olive oil, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of intangible assets in creating the brand and in creating the intellectual asset. You worked hard, Laura, to pull this business together and identify, I'm just using Zaze as an example, and identify the farmers and where it was grown, how it was going to get distributed, et cetera. So let's talk a little bit about that, Erin.
Yeah, I'm going to use another example, which I think is a pretty popular one, which is FedEx. So we think of FedEx, we think like, what are the most valuable assets? In FedEx, we know they have this fleet of planes. They have these hangars. They do all these things. They have the people, and so we think that that's the most valuable asset. But the most valuable asset in FedEx is the intellectual property, the system that they use to get packages all over wherever they need to go overnight or whatever the pace is. That is way more valuable than all those planes and all that real estate that they own. And so whether you have a traditionally IP-based business like film or data, there's going to be that the intellectual part of it, the part that makes everything run, the systems, the distribution mechanisms, the if there's research involved, before you develop an actual product, and your people as well. And so like all the internal knowledge of the company, standard operating procedures, even your contracts.
Right.
Certainly, if you're a service-based business, all your assets are intellectual, and so you receive and give assets, but through intellectual means. So
right.
through contracts,
basically. So it doesn't mean that you've figured out this great microphone, right, for somebody to use. There's so much more involved. Right. And I think also of Airbnb, Erin, right? How they pulled their platform together, how they encouraged initially everyone to have their hosts share photos, create conversation. That's a system and procedure. That's a culture for a platform. Or MailChimp, they were the first ones to use that really fun, clever conversation in how they delivered something that Constant Contact was doing just fine with, right? But Constant Contact has a different vibe, whereas MailChimp brought a whole playful for their niche. And that becomes, I imagine, part of the intellectual
brand, your brand, your culture. Absolutely. Those are also very valuable assets. Your positioning, which is super important for the service-based business, that niche and what you're known for and who you serve. Yeah.
So what is it that made you so passionate about women creating more wealth in order to do more good in the world? Because, there must have been some stats that you saw about women and how they disperse their wealth versus how men disperse their wealth.
Yes.
How can that work?
Yeah, well.
And why did it light you up? Because we have to be lit up.
Yes, we do. Well, I'll say this, that it has become very apparent the outsized impact that wealth has on the functioning of our democracy. And so for me, to make sure that we have an economy that works for more of us and that we have a healthier distribution of wealth became a part of my focus. And so I have, spent a career like working with big companies, helping big companies get bigger. And I started to think about what can I do to kind of help kind of more people kind of participate in the economy in a more meaningful way. And it took a while for me to kind of think about how to translate my big company experience kind of more broadly. And I was coached at some points well, maybe you don't use what you do for a living in order to make your impact. Maybe you make your impact through, giving money away or volunteering and things like that. And I kind of thought, well, maybe that's the case. And then I did read some stats about women and how they use their wealth and how women give away in much larger percentages their wealth. Even when they have less, they give more. And they give, they share it more with their communities. They take care of the families. They give more to charity. And so for me, I'm I want to make this impact, but if I can help other women create more wealth, who in turn make an impact with it, then it's a multiplier. It's not just me making money and giving it away. It's me helping other women make more money and giving it away, and giving it to causes that are more kind of social justice and equality oriented. So that for me, it kind of inspired me to kind of, okay, I can figure this out.
That's right.
And then for me, again, the obvious niche for me is to work with service-based businesses because they have intellectual assets, and that's what I do. So
I love that. And here's something that I see a lot, Erin, because I'm involved with a lot of pitch events. And that was my sweet spot when I was coaching, was the pitch deck and raising money. I've raised millions in VC, thousands in angel myself. But what I see is when the guys go in, it's just how guys are made and trained and conditioned. It's they're very clear for the most part about the value of their business. So when they go in to negotiate how much they're going to give up with investors, they tend to toe the line and hold on to ownership better than women hold on to ownership.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to, guys, I'm not trying to make this a competition. I'm just trying to increase awareness of how the world works. And a lot of times what you need to do is to see the value. And this is what Erin helps so well, is to see the value in the intangibles, the invisible assets that you have, so that when you step up to the plate, you know you are uniquely qualified to be a founder. And this business is valuable because of the conditions that you've created, because of the intellectual assets that you uniquely bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And holding on to ownership is so important. Right, Erin? Do you have any thoughts about holding on to ownership?
Yeah, well, I mean, intellectual property and also other intellectual assets that may not be intellectual property per se are, legal constructs, right? It's not something you hold in your hand. And so in order to own it, there has to be a piece of paper that documents that. And so, it's kind of boring, but having those contracts in place are essential when you are in the intellectual asset business. I mean, obviously, I'm sure it is for physical assets as well, but you have no assets without paper, signed paper, when you're in the intellectual asset business.
Right.
So, making sure from the beginning that you understand them. It's not to not be afraid of them. The contracts don't have to be complicated or scary. I know that some of them can be. I've seen 100-page contracts from big.
They're a little boring to read.
Yeah. I mean, there's sometimes you get them, they're treatises, right? And only one time in 30 years, but it has happened. One time, a very, very big company that we all know sent their 100-pager, and you could not change a word, not one word. And that's never like, nope, just sign it like, okay.
Okay. And this is why it's so important to have Erin on the show, everyone, because so often we kind of, take lean startup a little too far.
Yes.
And we don't bring in the dream team. And your attorney is a key member of your dream team. Why? Because they protect you. They have your interests at the heart of everything they do. Plus, they don't hold back. At least the good ones that I've worked with, and I can tell with you, Erin, they're like, oh, no, you don't, not on my watch. Yeah. And they start training your brain as well to understand how important everything is. I just want to bring up, using the olive oil company, Zaze, as an example. It's ZAAZEY.com for our listeners. And here's just a quick blurb for those who are watching. It's an early harvest, cold pressed, extra virgin olive oil mission has created sustainable jobs with higher paying wages for women around the world. And, you can get it anywhere, wherever Zaze is. And there's a lot of great good in what Laura's doing there. So thank you, Laura. And Mia says, yes, thank you for speaking on that, about how women really give back to society. I mean, Mia, you've heard the stories, right? Where, and those watching and listening, where the woman, she might have worked at the post office for forever, or at a small, a company that had a public trading company, so that she was building up this incredible wealth. And boy, she could not give it away fast enough. Mm-hmm. So Mia, thank you for saying that. Women truly do give more overall, no matter what their financial status. So the more we make, the better overall. Yes. And Laura is also saying, love it. Intellectual assets, intellectual property, so important. And so, is it the sexiest conversation? Heck no. But when it comes to the bottom line, it can get the fan out, because you're going to have greater wealth, greater impact with your business. And, I said something in the beginning here, and I think, I probably got it from you, Erin, because this is really something that women can get hung up on sometimes in creating wealth. And that is not being in your business for just the income. The income is never enough. The income in your life is never going to be enough. You have to invest it. And again, in your business, you have to build and understand what those assets, those invisible assets are being built. Yes. What do you think about that, Erin?
Yeah, That, yes. And I'm going to go back to where you started that with, it's not always the sexiest thing to talk about. And I will say that, part of my journey has been figuring out how to talk to people about assets. And, there are a couple of concepts, we've used them today in intellectual assets, intangible assets, intangibles, intellectual property. And for some people, those terms just kind of, their brain just switches off. And so when I first started talking to founders about, building, businesses that could be sold someday, I started talking about intellectual capital, which is yet another term. And that includes kind of this overall group of assets that includes intellectual property, your trademarks, your copyrights, your patents, and that kind of thing. But it also includes, your human capital, your culture, your relationships, and all those things, which are all very valuable, but aren't intellectual property. And so when I started talking about intellectual capital, people's just eyes glazed over. I'm like, okay, I won't talk about that anymore. So let me talk about intellectual property. But the definition is actually pretty narrow. So it was kind of confusing. And people just thought intellectual property just means software or a book. So if I don't have software or book, then I don't have intellectual asset.
Right. Or something I needed a design patent or utility patent for.
Right, yeah. Right. So, okay. So I'm like, okay, I'll stop talking about that. And so then I went to assets. Okay. Like everyone, that's the shared language, right? We know assets have value. We want to own them. We want to track them. We want to protect them and maintain their value, whether it's a house or a car or, our frameworks or our trade secrets or our secret sauce. Like these are all assets that have value that we need to understand and protect and make sure we own. And so that is, to me, it's a much more accessible way to talk about assets, whether you're service-based or, product-based, to talk about your assets. And when we look at it that way, hopefully it feels less kind of,
check this out, everybody. This is Erin's call to action. Is there a Rembrandt in your attic? Discovery call. Okay. Like, come on, folks. That puts you right into the antique roadshow mentality. Like, ooh, I have a treasure here I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Because it's your eyes looking at what you're doing every day going, well, whatever, it's what I do.
Right.
Versus having someone like Erin coming in. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, we do our thing, and, I am guilty of all these things that everyone does, which is someone who provides services, selling my time, selling my expertise, and not really building assets. So that's something I've been guilty of myself. And so, but when you start thinking about like, how do I package these things in a way that does not require me to spend my time? That kind of is the easiest way to think about it. Like, what am I building that doesn't require me to put, my butt in the seat billing in order to create revenue from it? And if we look at an asset that way. And so I'll tell a story about a woman who participated in one of my workshops who she did market research, but very, very sophisticated future, like long-term future-based research for biotech companies who hire her to create these what the world will look like by the time they get through the end of their R&D cycle, because they've got 10-year R&D cycles. So they need to know where the world's going to be. They don't need to know where the world is. And that's her specialty. And the people who can afford her, they pay her a lot of money for this. But she always was doing a custom one for every client. And so that she wanted to work with, some startups, but she couldn't because they couldn't afford her. But she just kind of had this very big, projects that she did. And what she didn't realize is that, yes, there's parts of the research that she does that are very specific to the client, exclusive to the client, can't use them, client knows them completely. But there's some research about what the climate may look like in 10 years or what the geopolitical boundaries may look like in 10 years and things like that, that could be reused, and packaged in a way that she could, sell subscriptions to it, or there's a number of things that she could do with that. And it never, she never looked at those as like kind of separate assets from.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have to protect them.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, copyright, use of et cetera. Like, what are some of the ways that people might exploit if you don't protect these intangible assets?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
If you are, because I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with contracts, but when you have a service agreement with one of your clients,
mhm.
and there will be parts of it that are 100% unique. Your clients are going to get all the rights to it, but there's going to be part of it that you use. Maybe you have a library of information that you use, or you have, a framework that you use, or the different things that you already have that you're using. You want to make sure that you're retaining the rights in those things that are kind of part of your pre-existing materials. So that's as far as I'm going to go. I'm not going to go any deeper than that.
Listen, this is why we have a great attorney on our dream team.
That is exactly right.
And so we don't know what our assets are until we have this conversation, because again, we could be looking at things that we do, like, what, I do that in my sleep. No, this needs to be protected and maximized. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what does it mean to maximize something, because at the end of the day, we need to really understand the value in our business. And now here's something that I didn't even think of. And here I said, wow, 4 times founder, seasoned and all of that. But when I LLC'd the Startup Life live show, my attorney, Sankita Selvaraja from Startup Docs, she said, okay, so when you go to exit, someone were to come along and buy, she had all these exit questions for me. And I was like, dang, girl, I never even thought. And I thought about that with all my other businesses, because I was doing pitch presentations, raising money, and I always had my exit strategy. I was like, what? But she protected me from the minute I started. So those of you side hustling founders, wannabe founders, or you've launched and you do not and you went onto LegalZoom, please don't. Please work with someone who's going to ask you those important questions and protect you, because this is maximizing your wealth along the way, so that when you do exit, however that looks like, and you will exit, not many businesses are going to be like a Microsoft, IBM. Someone's always going to get bought. MailChimp just got bought for $12 billion. Okay. They had a nice long run. Yeah. They had no venture funding. Just wanted to throw that out.
I do. Yes, I did read about that. Yes. I'll imagine that.
So, but you're always going to have an exit. You really have to think today about protecting those assets, the intellectual property and intellectual assets of your business, tangible or intangible, so that you are going to maximize your wealth down the road, because you're here to leverage and create generational wealth. And we know we can do that from our conversation with the wonderful Ruby Sunshine Taylor a few weeks ago, by investing in your business, in other assets, and in diversifying. Let's go and talk about the exit strategy and why that's so important to talk about the day you launch your business.
Yeah. I mean, and when we talk about exit, like, we're not necessarily talking about retirement. We're just talking about, and you said, like, you might not be Microsoft. Like, even if your business continues, you as a human will exit someday, whether you exit because you move on to a new challenge, or you exit because, for other reasons.
A new chapter, a new season.
A new chapter. So there's going to be an exit one way or the other, so either, and hopefully it's not that you just fold up shop and walk away from it. So the reason we want to plan for the exit is so that when you are ready for a new challenge, or life calls you to something else, that the work that you've done, that there is value there that can be transferred to a third party, and therefore you have a well-funded next chapter, right? Or you have a well-funded way to leave an impact or legacy or pursue your passions. And the way I look at it is that, having an exit strategy is not, kind of a betrayal of the company or of your employees or your clients. It is to make sure that that wonderful thing that you've built lives on after you, and so, your employees are protected, your clients are protected. They still get the same great experience that they had with you. So if we've done our job right, then it continues on. Yeah. So
right there, folks, that's gold, what Erin just shared. So take it all in. You want a well-funded exit.
Yes.
Yeah, and you have to think about that from day one, even though, startups have a high failure rate. We know that, but your business could easily win 100%. So before I go on with some more questions regarding exits, Laura has a question. Would you recommend college-age students to engage an IP attorney? I think that would depend on what they've got going.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything that they've created there that's value needs to be protected is what I'm thinking. What do you say, Erin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's say, if they're creating things, say they're, in tech or something, and they've created some software,
Yeah.
and they want to, if they're going to exploit it in any way, they absolutely need to make sure it's protected before they do that.
Right.
Or even if they're going to pitch, I think NDAs are disfavored at pitches, but
They are.
depending on, but
no investor is going to sign an NDA, folks.
But if you're bringing in a partner to help you, let's say you're the tech guy and he's the sales guy, then you need to make sure that you have agreements in place about how to deal with that. So
absolutely. And I don't think it's an age thing, Laura. I know you have young college age boys. It is the actual property itself, the intellectual property or intellectual assets itself. And also, let me just dispel this idea, unless it's about to cure cancer, I would never worry about someone stealing your idea. Okay. I have a whole videotape under Andelicious Advice on my YouTube channel about why that is not what you should be worried about. It's about the branding. It's about the implementing. It's about the execution, because there's always going to be competition. Your idea will be stolen, quote, in ways that, we have our folks, well-known stories and documented stories in China, people just taking it and flat out doing it themselves. Can't be protected in that regard. So that's why you have to do these intangible assets, right, Erin, to protect your business.
You build something, yes. Ideas aren't protectable. First of all, they're not protectable. But yes, it's all about the execution. That's where the value is. So yeah,
it really is. So folks, don't worry about someone stealing your idea unless you did just figure out. But even then, put it up there for all to enjoy while you're building your wealth.
Here's what I found is every time I have a conversation with something about an idea that I have, it gets better.
Right?
So you don't want to sit in the basement, doing over your idea without any feedback. You got to get it in order to improve it. So.
That's right. And if you don't already know this, founders, do not ask to an angel or a VC to sign an NDA. That is a red flag that you don't know what you're doing. Okay. So, and I have another video for that as well.
But I think I skipped over. You asked me a question about what startup companies need to do. And I will say this, the things that make a company saleable at the end of your time with it are the same things that will help you scale it. And the same things that will create value for a buyer are the things that will create value for you as the owner. So it's all the same stuff of making sure you have documentation, making sure you have systems in place, and making sure that, you're developing, a positioning, brand, niche, all those things that make it easier for you to be found, to sell, and to grow, the things that help you to be able to build a team, like systematizing and automation, all those things are the things that help you create value when you're running it, and the things that buyers will be looking for when you're ready to. That's
right, folks. Have your number ready too for when that buyer comes by. Seriously. But what you said is so important. And I'm sure you've seen founders make these mistakes, right? Where they don't have that documentation. What have you seen so far?
Well, the number of people who don't have contracts was always shocking to me, because it's one of those things, from my point of view, everybody has contracts. So it's shocking to me that people are doing business with some serious money sometimes that they're doing without contracts. And even there are some people who are, I'd say, thought leaders, who are proud of the fact that they don't use contracts because they think that they're evil, and
that's not where you want to be, folks. Okay.
It's not where you want to be. I was talking to someone who did website design. He did, and so he had subcontracted out some part of it. I think maybe the graphics design part or something. And he didn't have any contracts in place with the subcontractor.
Ooh.
And so he, does this lovely website and he delivers it to the client. Client's very happy. And okay, I need to make sure I have all the rights in this. And oops, I don't have the rights to the graphics. And so had to, go back and try to renegotiate to get those. But that's, you don't want to be in that position.
That's
you're
right.
an unhappy client. You're in very vulnerable position from that. And what if they had used, like they'd taken that stuff from the website, from the web somewhere? Like, you just, you
and people come right after you. Okay. So folks, the song I have in the beginning, that's licensed music. Okay. That music that I play, it's licensed. I can use it everywhere around the world, except ABC, NBC, and CBS. That's the licensing contract I have for that. So, I should be so lucky someone would want to play it.
There's worse things than to have to get new music because you have a network deal.
Right. Or when I had a business where I had illustrations that were so important for the business done, I had a contract with the illustrator. These belong to me and my business. Yeah. Okay. So that she couldn't go and use it without my permission. Other people can't go and use them without your permission. So remember, that is also equally important in all aspects of your business. Oh my gosh. So what final little takeaways do you want founders to just sort of hold on to as
I'm going to drill into what you just said a little bit, just to clarify that when you hire someone to create some intellectual property for you, whether it's music or art, or to write with you or guest, let's say ghost write, and it is 100% your idea. You told them everything that you want. You just do this, and you paid them for it. If you don't have a written agreement with that person, they own it, and you just have a license to use it. And so you have to have your contracts in place. So that's
absolutely. Photographers, this, musicians, this, music that you create for folks, designers, this, founders, you need to know that too. Love that. Something fierce. And then just finally, I just want to go one more step into the exit, just because this is what we work for. How can founders along the way just always be thinking about the day when the real wealth comes in? It can be coming in from the income from your business, of course, and you can reinvest that in other ways to build wealth. But also when they're sitting down at the table to negotiate, what are things that they should be remembering to do today as they build their business?
Oh, I think they should be thinking about that acquirers, when they are looking at, and I'm thinking about a strategic buyer in particular, meaning one who's kind of in your business and wants to bring you in to kind of help fill in some gaps in their offerings, that they're thinking, do I want to build this internally or do I want to buy somebody else's going concern? And so you want to make sure that they are thinking buy instead of build. And so for them to find you attractive for that, they need to know that the business can run without you, and that there is visibility in terms of like how much confidence they can have in your projections, and that when they combine your business with theirs, that there will be upside there.
Yeah.
And so making sure the business can run without you. That goes back to having systems, making sure that, when you go on, can you go on vacation? Do you have people who can run the business without you? So having those systems in place, having a team built around you. And then regarding the visibility is having a business model that is not just kind of catch as catch can, but has some sort of stability to it.
Right.
It doesn't have to be monthly recurring revenue. Obviously, people love that, but it can be reoccurring revenue, like for things like estate planners, generally people come back when there's new life events. They come back, people come back for new work. And that can be true with, other types of businesses where you can find the types of offerings that keep bringing your clients back, or that you can fill a pipeline with it because the offer is so well defined.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be productized, but so well defined that you can like build a pipeline of it. If you're like 100% custom, like where, they come in and I look at your business and I do a custom proposal, like there's just no way to know who, what, when, how much that, that goes with that. So having a business model that provides some kind of visibility. So,
right.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I just put up on the screen, but you can see it also in the banner going across the bottom, thinkbeyondip.com. Is there an email that folks can reach you at if they want to connect with you, or on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Well, Erin at Think Beyond IP is my email. And then on LinkedIn, it is Erin Austin, because I've been there since the beginning of time.
Yay.
So it's linked
You
to Erin
nailed it
on LinkedIn.
with that name. That is so wonderful. You have added so much value to founders' lives in this conversation. I stumbled on that because I co-host a pitch event called Founders Lives. So anyway, Founders Lives. And so, this is something I want everyone to constantly be looking at, because I know you're overwhelmed often in your business, working in it and making things happen all the time, but you need the lens of someone like Erin. And let me just pull up her wonderful graphic here, because she can help you. I'm going to read this for the podcast folks. In business terms, a Rembrandt is that hidden, overlooked, or underutilized business asset that can be leveraged for maximum value through scaled growth. In the tradition of the Antiques Roadshow, by the end of this discovery call with Erin, you will know whether your business has a Rembrandt in your attic. The marketing branding person in me just goes, yes, I love that. Because now you're thinking like, wow, there's a treasure here. So thank you for reframing what we might think of as, oh, well, whatever, it's just what I do in my sleep, to, wow, this is important. And folks, when you're sitting down at the table, and hopefully you got your attorney with you, and you're talking to someone who really sees the value in your business and wants it and wants to buy it and all, then this is so important for you. Okay, I'm just having a little challenge here with my mouse. Hey, Asia K, so good to see you. Yes, it's been an amazing conversation, and I'm so glad you've been listening intently. Hooray. And Laura said she's following you wherever you glow, so that's wonderful. That's what we want to hear. I just have a couple last minute questions here before we wrap up. And that is, you've been at this for about 15 years now. So you've got the run that you had within corporations that served you for that time period. And now you've been mostly as an entrepreneur. How has this enhanced your life? Both personally and professionally.
Well, being able to work with women in particular, and honestly, being a lawyer, traditional lawyer, is very reactive. You got a problem or you need something, like make it happen, right? But doing this work is much more proactive, strategic. I learned something new. Again, like every time I talk to someone, their businesses are, similar but different. One woman who is in printing and packaging, I'm like, when I'm thinking, publishing, but it's, working with banks that, the biggest printers of statements, like that's where most of the paper is business oriented. Right. And, working with someone who creates super, super smart hardware. Yeah. And so it's like, I learn something new every time. It's totally cool. And so for me, it's kind of reinvigorated me.
Oh, I can feel it. I'm on the edge of my seat with excitement. Yeah. How excited you are about this.
I know. Because I had gotten the legal work. I can do it in my sleep, quite honestly. And so this part is a new challenge. So
it's wonderful. And it's not so much reactive as it is helping build. Yes, and, this wealth component, women, is so important, because we can change the world. We need to be able to invest our money. And I'm old enough to remember when Emily's List was founded. And Emily's List was founded because they were tired of women thinking, I'll bake cookies for a bake sale. You need to up your game. And, same thing I learned when I was helping my alumni association with their fund drives. And that is, I learned that Men will see who's writing the bigger check and try to match that or greater, whereas women are back at the bake sale. What can I bake and sell? No, write the check. And how do you write the check is by building wealth and building generational wealth and looking at your business always, not just as a passion play, but at the value that you are creating, those intangible values as well as those tangible ones that you're holding on to every day is so important, and definitely holding on to ownership.
Absolutely.
Erin, what are you working on right now that we can add wind to your sales?
I'm writing a book.
Get out of town.
And thank you, Ande. You actually gave me the title when we spoke the other day when you mentioned founderhood, because I'd been struggling with, I think my placeholder title was birth parent founder or something terrible like that. And, talking about how kind of the life cycle of building and growing a business and then being prepared for the baby to leave the nest, being prepared for the business to leave the nest, and in particular for women who kind of, they love their employees, they love their clients, they don't want, and so they build that business not with an exit in mind, but with to do something that they love in mind, right? And so that is the nature of the book that I was writing about. And so, I had all my little sections about, conception and birth and growth and everything. But I had this title, and I had this title that was just terrible. And then you use the term founderhood. I'm like, oh,
yeah. That's it. Nailed it. See, we all have an impact on folks' lives, everyone. This is a team sport. Writing a book. Oh, congratulations. When do you think we'll be able to get whiff of it?
I'm hoping in the new year.
Excellent. Wow.
2022. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I love that. Well, I am going to pop you into the green room. I'm so grateful you came to talk about something that is so important. And I actually get very jazzed up about intellectual assets, intellectual property, and ownership, and seeing the value. So thank you for lighting me up and bringing such incredible, important information to the Startup Life Live listeners and to founders everywhere who are going to tune in and go, wow, I didn't think of it that way. You changed the lens through which they're looking at their business with. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Hopefully I did my job and taught something new today. So yes, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, you did. It was perfect. All right, so I'm going to pop you into the room here. Folks, come on. I know sometimes you have to get out your smarty pants ring, right? And just go, ooh, I can channel that information in. It's so important. And everything, that we do here is to help you up your game as a founder. You've got to constantly be building your knowledge base and your ability to take your business where you want to go. And women, to think about wealth generation, because the stats show you give back to society with your wealth. You really make changes and differences in folks' lives with your wealth. So yay for that. Let's talk about who's coming on the show next. And it is Tina Wells. And our topic is how to successfully transition from employee to entrepreneur, because this is really hard. When you've been motivated as an employee to succeed, you've got to put on a completely different mindset for succeeding as an entrepreneur. And Tina is amazing. She's an entrepreneur, business strategist, advisor, and best-selling author, and the founder of Relevant Media, which is a multimedia content venture serving entrepreneurs, tweens, and culturists with authentic representation. And hello, Tina dove into entrepreneurship at the tender age of 16 and went through higher education, both college and grad school, running a business called Buzz Marketing Group. So for 2 decades, she connected large brands like Apple, Kroger, Dell, and more with millennials and Zeds. So come on, Friday. It's Fab Female Founder Friday on October 8th at 12 p.m. EST, 9 a.m. PST. And how do you know? And I've posted a new show. Why you join the Startup Life Live meetup group. Yay! bit.ly/Startup Life Live. There's a QR code there. Links, of course, will be in the show notes to make it real easy so that you can know when I post a new show and meet a new founder and gain that knowledge that you need to up your founder game. But in the meantime, it's so important that you remember this, right, folks? We always end the show this way. Promise me you'll remember that you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and wicked smarter than you think. You are a founder and you step into your founderhood more and more every day. I'm so proud of you. Until next time, I'm blowing you kisses, filled with appreciation, and wishing you a delicious day. See you next time. See you next time.